Tonight, we're going to explore dreams and analogy. Now, it's not merely a formal question about the relationship between dreams and analogy. In order to understand dreams, you have to learn how to play with analogies. Now, we have all gone through our schools, and while we are taught the rules of inference, scientific method, and occasionally deductive systems of logic, no one focuses on analogical thinking. It's heavily censured in our culture. It's never presented formally. But if you want to get into dream analysis and to play with dreams, you should exercise this curious kind of thinking called analogical reasoning. That's the way to proceed. That's the background. That's the way you set your mind. That's the way you prepare to deal with a dream, is analogically. So therefore I'm going to just review certain formal properties of analogy, and then we're going to go into a dream and play. Hi.
Why is it heavily censored?
My Uncle Louis did a study of that so far. He hasn't contributed it yet. He's still sitting on it. He's been working on it for 18 3/4 years. We expect him to finish it sometime. I don't know. Well, okay. The kind of analogy we're talking about is an archetypal analogy of two ratios of four terms. Now, I'm going to explore an analogy and represent it symbolically. Now, what is a ratio? A ratio is a particularly interesting relationship within a class. Within a class. Must be within a class. Not just any two random things. Therefore, a shepherd is two. That signifies a ratio. See? A shepherd is to his sheep. There must be a relationship between them. See? Then that's a ratio of two terms. A shepherd is to his sheep as a ruler is to his subjects. Well, then in that case, we can then say, take the first term A is to B, as C is to D. The reason we can do that is because we are saying they are two ratios. We can represent that by two dots. A is to B. And what this is saying is that there is another ratio, C is to D, and they have an intimate connection. An intimate connection as. So the properties of the first ratio, a shepherd is to his sheep, is carried over, and as you consider the way a ruler is to his sheep, you must ignore all references and all possible ways of understanding a ruler to his subjects except those that fit in as a shepherd is to his sheep. All others drop away. That's an analogy. It's governed by this rather curious word, as. So here we have a shepherd is to his sheep, A is to B, as C is to D. That specifies of all the ways you can relate the first two terms, and there can be many, many ways of relating them. Hey, not the same, but in a similar way, you can study all the ways in which a ruler is to his subjects, and you can find a set that is similar between the two. When you have that, then you have an analogy. There will also be a set of differences, dissimilar. You're going to ignore those. So that is basically our introduction to analogical thinking. This is an analogy. Again, two ratios, A is to B, C is to D, governed by the most important term as, which established there must be a relationship between the two of similarity. Now, here's again our four-term analogy, A is to B is C is to D. When you then have an analogical relationship of four terms like we have here, you can then say the first term is to the third term, A is to C. You can then substitute for the word is to and use the word to. All right, then you can substitute for to and just say is. Now, I can say a shepherd is to a shepherd. That's a ratio. A shepherd is to a ruler. But I can also say, can't I, a shepherd is a ruler. When I do that, when I use that, is, when I move from is to is, I have created a metaphor. All the symbols and images in a dream are metaphors. And we'll get into that in a little bit. Now, again, you can say a shepherd is to his sheep, as a ruler is to his subjects. You can also say, can you not, that sheep are like subjects in some degree. That too fits. Therefore, we can then say, sheep are subjects, subjects are sheep. But if we use the word like, then you create what is called a simile, not a metaphor. What do you need? The word like. That generates a simile. Now, the study of dreams is going to involve analogies, metaphors, and similes. That's what it does. With one other thing, and we need another thing. Yeah.
What's the difference? I lost. What's the difference between an analogy and a metaphor and a simile? Did you
Okay.
generate it from on that?
No. Here. A shepherd is to his sheep. That's a meaningful relationship between two terms, isn't it? It's not just ashtrays and gorillas. Right? They must have a particular relationship. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And you want to say that whatever the relationship is between these, whatever key relationship exists between these two, that same way of relating you are now going to find between another two set of terms.
That makes the analogy.
That makes the analogy, all right? As a teacher is to his, in this case, students. Now, A is to B as C is to D. Would you agree I can say a shepherd is like a teacher? A teacher